Gemma, this is an annual report, the CSIRO's Gen Cost report, that analyses the cost of Australia's future energy needs. Now, because the Coalition formally adopted nuclear power as part of its suite of policies, the CSIRO, for the first time earlier this year, modelled the costs of nuclear compared to renewables. Now, at the time, it received heavy criticism from the Coalition and nuclear proponents who claim the CSIRO's modelling was flawed on two key fronts. Firstly, they criticised the CSIRO, saying that it underestimated how often a nuclear power plant could operate at full capacity during the year. And they also pointed out that nuclear reactors last for 60 years or more, which is about twice as long as wind and solar farms, meaning the capital costs are spread out over a much longer period. So the CSIRO, in putting together this latest report, said, OK, we accept that. We're happy to accommodate this criticism. And it's gone back, adjusted its modelling, put these new assumptions into the computer, but basically the conclusion is the same. The CSIRO has found once again that nuclear power is about 50% more expensive than renewables, so in other words would cost twice as much to build, and the CSIRO reaffirming its earlier analysis that renewables are the lowest cost new form of generation. Now that's the cost aspect. On the timing aspect, the CSIRO has also found that looking internationally, they believe it would take at least 15 years for the first reactor to be built in Australia, which is problematic in the organisation's view, given that 90% of Australia's coal-fired power stations are due to close in the next 10 years.
So this comes in the midst of what is a heated debate over energy policy. What's been the response?
Yeah, well, the federal government says this affirms the Labor Party's policy, basically, that its plan is the cheapest way of overhauling the electricity grid. Labor wants 82% of Australia's power to come from renewables by 2030, up from about 40% now. And the CSIRO in this report has said that wind and solar, backed by batteries and gas, is the lowest cost form of new generation. Now, the Coalition opposes this policy. It claims this policy is partly why power bills are rising. And it, of course, has a plan, if elected, to build 7 nuclear reactors across the country in 5 states. Now, we know the locations, we don't know the cost. And this week, we're expecting Peter Dutton to release the costings of his policy. So this CSIRO report is sort of lands like a thud in the middle of this debate. Energy, climate change, highly politicised, but let's hear from the two sides really. Here's Cabinet Minister Mark Dreyfus responding to the CSIRO report this morning.
We need to get on and get our power network converted to renewables with firming gas in the interim, and that's the course that the government's engaged in. Mr Dutton should stop with his nuclear fantasy.
That was Mark Dreyfus there. Now let's hear from the opposition leader, Peter Dutton.
Do you know what? They haven't even seen our plan yet. And yet they're out bagging it. It just looks to me like there's a heavy hand of Chris Bowen in all of this. And I don't think people want to see that. I think what they know from Chris Bowen at the moment is that he's wrecking the energy system and that's wrecking the economy. And that's why families are facing food inflation and higher prices when they go to the supermarket.
And that was Peter Dutton there, Gemma. We can expect to hear a lot more about the competing energy policies, not only this week, but as we head towards next year's federal election.